Patricia O'Connor and Frida Reba Darcy here. Today is a beautiful day. You know what? We can do better than that, I think. Hold on just a second. It's a beautiful day on the bonsai balcony. We are enjoying some blue skies and some green trees. And I thought it would be a nice time to not do anything too hot and heavy. We're just gonna do a little balcony tour and see how everybody's doing. That's how y'all are. I hope wherever you are that you are doing well. I am doing well. My sidekick, partner in crime, Frida Reba Darcy, as you can see, is lounging and being spoon-fed her favorite per diem. So yeah, she's been paid. We're off and running. This is just going to be a little quick look at our trees from one end to the other, and everybody is settling in. Seems to me nicely with the new setup. I don't think anybody right now shows any signs of lacking anything. But I guess we'll start with our baby pine trees. These are our bebe pine trees. These are the seedlings we started. We've already started throwing wire to some of these, and we can go along and start throwing wire to quite a few more anytime now. This is just fun stuff for the future. From now on is what that's got going for us. It's going to go up high. That's our wisteria is doing a second flush this year. It's already bloomed and did a first flush, and then that first flush went away. Now we're going to frame up our dawn redwood. It's filling out and looking really nice. It is filling out and really looking nice. I'm just going to let it go out and regain more and more energy. I'm going to start trying to treat it like I'm doing my bald cypresses, which is just to let it go all year and then do a big cutback. And then do a cutback in the winter. That's what I think we're up to here. And it grows fairly fast when it's not being messed with. So whatever we have going now, really, if I think about it, we can change that in a couple of years with some girth and some, fusion maybe between some of this. What I really want to see is some lifelines coming out somewhere along the tree. And they can put out growth in their bark areas like the bald cypresses put out bark in there. If that were a pine, for instance, whenever you see bark, you're not going to see any shoots coming out of that. That typically means that boat is sailed. So if that were the rules with these, then we wouldn't be able to get anything below, say here. That's not necessarily the case because, like I said, these guys in my bald cypresses will definitely put out flushes of growth where there's bark. All right, I moved, part of what we were doing also, I moved in my corkbark oak, my Corcus suber. It was out there on the rail. I moved it a little closer in. That makes it easier for me to water both sides. And I think it's going to do fine here. I also like having it a little closer. The Japanese corkbark black pine that's sitting behind it is way easier for me to water. I don't have any trouble getting the wand on my large watering can here, or on the back side by coming over this way when I water the dawn redwood too. So that makes it easier all the way around. But whenever this guy is out there, one side that faces out is always tricky, always getting cooked, and always in one side or another. Like this little bald spot here is a direct result of when that side got cooked. All of this brown moss here is a direct result of where this side got cooked. So that's kind of how we go back and forth. And where you see this, this is where my little crow buddies have decided to bury one of the peanuts that I gave them. That was kind of taking liberties, but I'll let it go. They're not doing as much damage to it as I've already done by basically leaving my biogold on the top, leaves these holes. Some of you guys have mentioned it too. I'm not too concerned about what it's doing because I still know that on the whole that moss is healthier because of that biogold, and that moss is helping filter that soil, so it's still doing good. It's better off because of it. The biogold is better off because of the moss, and so I don't sweat it. If I would sweat it, or I would be more concerned or clean it up if I were going to show this tree. I'm not, but except to you guys. And while we're talking about it, I'm really happy with where this guy is going. It's way ahead of what I think is, I mean, it's not way ahead. We're still a little ways to go yet before I have what I think I had envisioned. But what I see here, I'm liking a lot more than I thought I would at this early stage in the game. By early stage of the game, I just thought we were making some good headway last year when I had a little powdery mildew debacle. I'm still going to take care of powdery mildew the way I always have, and that is pretty much the way I always have. With neem, I'm also going to incorporate on some of the things that suffer from powdery mildew. I'm going to start using soap more. The neem will be for other instances, I think, for other issues. Spider mites, for instance, might be more of a neem thing, and the soapy water might be, here's what, this guy can get powdery mildew, this guy can get powdery mildew, and these guys tend to get powdery mildew. And for that reason, after what I went through last year about letting my concentration accidentally get a little too thick on my in my neem container, in other words, some of the water had evaporated off and that neem got strong. So it was causing me as much problems as it was helping. And I kept reapplying it, not realizing that I was just absolutely making it worse. What I just saw me do there is hose my babies down here. They get watered on the leaves. That is the best way to give those little leaves powdery mildew when that water doesn't dry up immediately. Our temperatures here are pleasant enough that water that gets on those leaves can stay there a little while. If they're subject to get powdery mildew, then they sure will. Looking this way, and looking over there at my cork bark oak. I have been warned not to water the foliage on my oaks ever. And when I did do that, I have paid for that. I do get that wasn't just, they weren't, as my old uncle would say, I'm not just woofing. So yeah, that was probably if you've ever heard that, you probably haven't heard I'm not woofing in a minute. Japanese cork bark black pine is loving that space. It's greening up even more. I'm going to let my next payday come around midweek, and then I'm going to rotate that. I think it was Lee of Lee's Trees that told me his idea of every paycheck, by monthly paycheck, he rotates his trees around. That's how he remembers. This guy's looking good here and greening up, and I'm just really happy with it. We're not doing candles on this again this year. We are feeding it. Our oaks are getting fed. Our trident maple, when we're speaking of food, it's getting fed. Close proximity to that, just move over to this rail. We're looking at quite a few ponderosas here. This is a Japanese black pine. This is a Japanese black pine. The one on the end is the Japanese black pine, and all the rest of these guys are our ponderosas. They're all facing this kind of the way they would in the wild. They're all on a south-facing cliff, and I think they're all looking really good. Everybody just looks to be thriving out here in this direct sun. If it gets too windy or something, we could see a turn of events. I want to bring that last tree over there that's in shadow. I can't tell how well it's doing from here. I can't see it well enough for the cypress tree from there, but I grabbed it up a day or so ago and had a look at it, and I was really surprised how well it looked like it was thriving. I just didn't want to feel like it was out of sight and out of mind, which it never is, but I was more concerned that it wasn't getting, maybe not getting good light for most of the day, or I was concerned maybe I had, maybe I set it down with its back turned, but that is our other little Yamadori Ponderosa pine, and it is looking very vigorous and green, which, let's see, where are we? Don't want to skip around too much. This is Simply Pea. Simply Pea got really yellow looking over the winter, and why not? I did way too much to this tree last year as a bit of a guinea pig, without really realizing it. I did way more to this tree than you should probably get away with doing to your tree. And Simply Pea is going to be fed and watered and well taken care of. And by what did I do to this tree in the past year and a half? I have repotted, restyled, did a huge trunk chop, repotted, and decandled. A lot of that stuff I just named was in the same 12-month period, which is kind of a no. I didn't do anything to the tree when it didn't look absolutely healthy. It just kept telling me, yeah, no, bring it on, which is not actually accurate, because I should be more in charge of that. I should be more proactive as to knowing what the tree can and can't take. And I think in the end, looking at it, when this winter, it started turning into the yellower of my pines, and it had never been that before. I started kind of looking within a little and going, what did you do and how much did you expect this tree to go through? But basically it was growing this way. It was growing this way and had kind of like two major trunks. And we changed the angle to this, took all the roots that it had and put them under peat moss, which then meant there was probably not much in the pot. And then we've been repacking and watering and repacking the peat moss. We cut. This was the second half of the tree. What you see here, there was another one of those out here that did the same thing one way or another, I forget. And so we chopped that in half. Just chopped it in half. I also did a little bit of a shari here. So, yeah, Simply Pea is looking good. All those really yellow needles were last year's needles. And there's a lot of green needles on here. That's this year's needles. So it appreciates the fact that we stopped messing with it and we're still feeding it. And also, in the end, I always kind of made fun of this tree because I thought it was a ridiculous little tree. It came to me just a million possibilities with a dozen little octopus arms sticking out like this all over the place. And I think I cut down 36 branches or something down to the 4 you see, and then chopped the trunk in half and then did that again. So once I changed the angle, I went, hey, I just see a way where this could actually be a pretty okay tree in a few years. And we went directly to that after we had already done a lot of stuff. So the last thing, hopefully the last major lesson that this tree taught me, and it did teach me a lot, was when to say enough. I probably should have said enough earlier, but this tree made it through last year. It's putting on new growth. It looks vigorous and healthy. So I'm kind of wiping my forehead at this point and going, I think we got by with that. I think the tree has forgiven me of my early indiscretions, and I'll look forward to Simply Pea being what I see in my mind a more traditional Japanese black pine bonsai. And right now, it may look like one of those tribber bears or whatever those little things are that can withstand all the it almost looks like a little a little bear or something, the way I'll, a teddy bear or something with this is the body and this is the head kind of a thing. It looked kind of whimsical, I know, but I actually see this tree as being something. I actually see this tree as really being something when all is said and done. And I think the videos that I have that show this guy in a very compromising light, which is how it came to me. It came to me as a tree from a bonsai store, someplace that grows trees by the table loads, and they don't have necessarily the most artistic eye dealing with them, bringing them along. It has people who are paid by the hour coming along and making cuts as they were told to do, and you do that by the table loads, and it's just like farm trees. And what the customer is supposed to get for still a pretty okay amount of money. I mean, like these things were, when I looked it up, it was given to me as a gift by the girls in the office, but when I looked it up in the book, these things were like $800. I'm like, yeah, okay, thanks. But even at that, I was going, it's a ridiculous little tree then. And it was ridiculous because it was the world of possibilities, some of which would have been grand and some of which would have been pretty ugly duckling. So I've kind of gone on for a minute about Simply P when we have much finer trees on here. But this is one of our early and original allocations. And not totally early. We had a few trees when I got this. But as far as my pines were concerned, one of the things that I learned was the pine that I kind of took for granted because it was free and I didn't think it was very pretty. When it was greener than this one and this one, I had to kind of look inside myself and go, you're over caring for this one and you're over caring for that one, and this one that you care less about looks like it's doing better because of less of you, which is kind of a hard lesson to take. But on the other hand, it just means you're spending a little bit too much time doing the wrong stuff. That same amount of attention to something that the tree actually would be asking for, and you would look like the big hero. All right, that's got us there. Here we are looking at our Kodaheim maple forest. I just discussed earlier how this tree is always getting powdery mildew. It'll get powdery mildew at the drop of a hat. I do keep the soap standing by. Unlike years past, I'm more worried about not watering the tree. But I'm worried that if I'm afraid of getting water on the leaves, I'll miss the water. If I miss the water, we'll kill trees. If it gets powdery mildew, we'll make trees weak or sick, but probably won't kill them one and only time or two or only times, or a recovery in between. So I'm more worried about death by lack of water than I am powdery mildew by getting water on the leaves. But what I am also trying to do is be more proactive with my soap solution. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with the way this guy is going. We've been doing this little guy for 3 or 4 years now. Some of our trunks are starting to show promise. We're getting a better look at it, probably as bad as this is right now, than I've had in quite some time. I should probably drag it out and get all up close and personal. But when I do, those are always really nice visits. I'm gonna just do a little truck beep back up, and this is our big guys. This is our bald cypress. It is a 3-tree grouping. The center tree is a twin trunk. It wasn't originally a twin trunk. It came to me with a top chop and 2 leaders sticking up like this. I cut a V in between them so that they would be 2, and then pointed them straight up, wired them and pointed them straight up. Later, I chopped one and replaced it, and then 2 years later, I chopped the front one and replaced it. When a sprout came up that I thought was perfectly positioned, I'm like, roll the dice. I'll lose 2 years if I go with this sprout. But this sprout is so perfectly poised exactly over the base of the tree. And if it gets 2 inches high and looks like it's going to go for the, and try to be a new leader, I'm going to start chopping back the leader that it's growing under in an energy exchange. And as that little leader kept growing up, I kept chopping the top one back. And that one I'm talking about there is this guy. So we've got some tops now that we're really happy with. We also got some damage here just a little while ago that we weren't really happy about. I've mentioned it in almost every show. But during our last show, I went through and I found some more wounded material in here. And nothing that I had to get rid of. Some things that I just needed to prune back. Probably more or less the same place I would have pruned them back in the fall. So it's not like I lost anything. We do see some bare spots, but I would. This guy is still pushing out foliage. So any bare spots will probably result in little buds getting activated. Like this guy senses that it's got this little spot all to itself, so it started to activate that little bud. Meanwhile, after the show the other day, I took this branch and threw a piece of wire to it and took it up. That's the new sheriff in town. Well, that's the new leader on the newest leader of the biggest tree, the little twin towers, bald cypress. So they're looking pretty good and pretty happy. I think that's a little thick to be the next leader. I don't think that is, though. So yeah, I might do that in a little while. Also, there's something that I'm going to do in a little while that I would like to make a show, but I won't. I'll get to that in just a minute. That's just a little foreshadowing. That is foreshadowing. So now looking at the base and the foliage, basically what we're looking at, taking another little back step. These bald cypress trees are very, very, very rewarding to grow. I bought the outside two from a vendor in northern Louisiana. I got the middle tree from a California grower who had it for 5 or 6 years. I think at the time I looked at old pictures they had of it, and they had originally had the trunk. They've done a couple of trunk chops. It had a trunk that was much higher in older photos. I cut the top down none. What I did was cut a V in the top. That's what I cut. That was the cut I made. If I were to go in between those two branches right there and just drop that back down to the base, to some degree or another, it would have a hard time now squeezing right in there. I think I counted those rings also. And how many years would you guess that tree was? That tree is less than 20 years old. When I counted the rings, I think I came up with 13, and that was probably 2 years ago. So that might be a 15-year-old tree. They grow really fast. If it were an oak and it were that big, or a Japanese black pine and it were that big, you would probably figure it had quite a few more years than that on it. But you can get really big trees really fast. You can see where we wired the leader up on this smallest one. We did that a couple of months ago. That's where we just did the leader on that one. After the last show, when I get off the horn on this one, I'll probably take that leader in the background and a little piece of wire I just set over to the side a minute ago, and I'll make that guy look skyward, and then we'll have we'll have most of our new leaders in place. I've got to do one over here. I don't see it yet. I don't see the material that I want to be the next leader on that. It might be that I cut it again because that branch to me looks too thick to be on the very top. That should be like the thinnest, and it is. I'll just do that now. That's a flaw. All right, hybrids. see we've got a certain thickness going here, certain thickness going here, certain thickness going here. And then this guy is massively thick. Also, I don't see a branch up here close by that I would like to be our new leader. So if I do that, we'll still be a-okay. And I think that'll be the new sheriff in town. That'll be the new leader. Okay, so we just made a decision right there, real time. An actual executive Bondi decision was made. Now, earlier I'd been discussing how there's a lot of stuff on this tree we let slide this time of year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a whirlpool of 5 branches right there. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's a lot of really, really heavy branch work down there, and these are all no-nos in the tiny book of bonsai. I mean, if you don't have a lot of room for a lot of material, one of the no-nos is no 3s and 4s when it comes to branches like that. And we agree with that, and we play by those rules. We just let everything hang out. They can still live and produce energy and produce chlorophyll and produce root mass, which will produce wood mass, which we need to make. We need to make things that are that big become things that are this big to take up that girth. So we need to build a lot of lumber, and all this foliage is going to help us do that. So we don't go through and snip every third branch, every up, every down, every back at us. We let all that stuff go. And come fall, when this stuff turns a really beautiful rust color, I still don't cut anything because I love looking at that beautiful rust color. But I also know that it's got maybe a week or two before it'll start coming off. And when it mostly is all gone, I'll go through and make branch selections. And that's how we end up with stuff that looks like this and looks like this. And our 1s turn into 2s and our 2s turn into 4s. So that's where we are there on those cypress trees. They're happy, they're ticking along. I'm enjoying the process. I like to do these little top chops in the summer because I think that creates a little hormonal allocation rush through the tree that will cause more energy to go up through here. This is going to try to grow fatter and flesh out. This should try to grow fatter and flesh out. The new kid there and there will do likewise. So with that going on, everybody should, instead of settling in for the summer, hopefully I get a little bit more activity out of this whole thing. That's kind of what I'm saying there. And that's the purpose for doing these. You see a tree grow up, and then for a couple of years it just seems to hang out there. And you're like, well, if I just cut that back 6 inches, 8 inches, we can get a whole lot more energy going on through here. And that was my point in doing that. I will keep an eye on all these branches that we're talking about, was our 2s and 3s and 4s. And I will also keep in mind what's flagging or shadowing stuff that I know is keepers. So I'm more concerned with that. It's also too early to worry about that. But in the scheme of things, that's what I'm more likely to cut between now and pruning time than that back-facing branch or that straight-up-facing branch. It's not only that, but it's the one that's may cause dieback on something that we want to keep because there's not enough light going to it. Also, I realized I skipped my from seed Japanese black pine. We're in the dark too. My lights just went off. But this guy's looking really, really well. I've also decided to give it a break on the candle cutting this year. We did our candle cutting and our needle reduction last year, and it is just absolutely been a pleasure to grow. This is one of Jonas's at Bonsai Trees. When I got it from him, it was a 17-year from seed. I've had it about 3 years now. And I love I love this little tree. So that's the one I skipped. Okay. Now, we can come back over here. This is our coastal oak. You know what? This is our coastal oak. This tree was another one that came out of Jonas's garden. I'm on my knees proposing to my timer. I'm gonna flash our lights back on. Hold on, I'll be right back. That tree that I'm still showing you. That tree was started in a batch of acorns from an enthusiast who was also a nurser. And the story I heard was this was the one 40 years later after he had passed away and the wife was selling the nursery. This was the one that got kept. And 40 years from seed. It's a bonsai coastal oak. And it came down with the Black Death last year. Black Death is not an official term. It's just, I freaked out and had to start cutting huge parts of this tree off. I was so disappointed. I got this tree in show shape and something came through. I found out later that I wasn't the only one going through this, which, I don't know, that didn't change my results, but it kind of had a weird feeling of, I didn't feel like I did it. Before that, I felt like what I didn't know meant that I had done this. But that's probably the only dead spot on the whole tree right now. And that was the side that was facing out that I expected to look fuller. When I just rotated the tree, the side that was facing in, way fuller. So I think I'm going to leave it like this. I'll probably rotate it to see how the outside's doing to make sure I'm not burning it or something. But the tree shouldn't be burned. I don't know why. My lights seem to have provided better lighting than the sun, for which it gets primo amount. So I just keep an eye on how everything's doing. And like I said, everything should get rotated every 2 weeks. If I have a look on the other side and the other side's looking fine, I might leave it like this and see if this side will recover or fill in more the way the other side did under the influence of just the lights. Other than that, this tree has been a fantastic tree. We've been getting a lot of good girth on the base, but it already had a really, really good nabari going in. We're seeing, you kind of can see what we're doing. We let our branches go all summer, all fall, and then we cut them back. And then our ones become twos or twos become fours. We're not as concerned with our straight ups, our straight downs, and our straight backs because we're trying to build mass. There was a whole lot of dead spaces in this tree. And I remember last year being about halfway through the year going, finally, most of the dead spots on this tree are starting to fill in with some foliage and we don't have these huge gaping holes everywhere. Well, looking at it, this and this I still have. But given how bad it was, I would have taken that easily whenever I was making that little assumption. So in a minute, when our choices double and then double again, I'll be able to go back through there and start cutting back things that are going straight up or straight down, or things that are going straight back at the trunk, or things that are in threes or fours. But in the meantime, between now and fall, we don't cut back anything that's a 3. We don't cut back anything that's a 4. We're letting a lot of other rules fly, letting a lot of stuff slide, so that we can just accumulate the mass to build some good structure. And we're going to do everything I'm going to do on the cork bark oak that I've done to it so far has been clip and grow. I tend to wire my pines. And I tend to wire some of my other trees, but so far I don't think I've put any wire to this coastal oak. I like the way it predictably branches off where you cut it. If I wanted a branch to go that way, I would cut it, leaving the leaf going that way to be the last one. If I wanted it to go that way, then this leaf might be my last one. That node would then, that bud would then get active. So that's kind of what's going on there. Really happy with all the development on this guy. Looks like I could probably put out a little bit more biogold on this oak. Other than that, it's been pretty good sailing for the last couple of years, aside from that one debacle. A few weeks ago, I brought in this tall drink of water. That is our literati Japanese black pine. I brought it in and did a candle cut. I also did an observation about whether or not I needed to remove the wire. And what I saw was one or two places I probably could, but I could also get away with it. And as much and as long as that video was already going, I decided to cut that short. Today, I will bring this tree in, not on camera, it's too awkward. So, to get it in frame. Okay, so that's an exaggeration. Of course, I could step up the lens a little, but it's going to be really hard to get, there's no way you're going to see any detail of just somebody with their hands all over the branches of that. What are they doing? That's what kind of video that would be. So today, while I'm watching whatever else I'm watching and doing whatever else I'm doing, I do plan to bring in this literati Japanese black pine and start removing some of the copper wire from those hoops in the different stories of this Japanese black pine. Then I'll let it relax whatever it looks like it's going to, and we will go back in a week or so and start applying wire as we feel we need to or not. Other than that, when we did that, I also gave the bottom of the pot a little shave because it had a lot of escape roots. It's in that little space now, and it seems to be doing very well. Last year's needles are quite long, but we did do our candle cut this year, and it's just now starting. The pines that I've already done candle cuts to are already starting to respond. Okay, that's pretty much a catch-up on the Japanese black pine literati. Behind it is another showstopper. This is a ponderosa pine, Yamadori, collected at 5,600 feet, I think, was what the tag says. Deadwood, South Dakota. It's over 100 years old. I got this tree about this time last year. In that time, I bought a bonsai jack and closed up some of the loops in it some. And I took all the foliage that was all bent, not straight up in the air, but bent way up in the air. And I pulled it back down to where none of the branches were as high as the top loop that you see on the right. Some of the needles go up higher than that, but none of the treetops should be as high as that from what I had done. I then decided to overwinter the tree for safety reasons to make sure that it didn't have a bad go with not overwintering properly. So it spent its winter at Peter T's garden in Auburn, California. Towards the end of that stay, I reached out to him and asked him if he would he be interested in doing some grafts to this tree. He said he would and gave me a price, and we shook over email. And I picked the tree up first or second week in March instead of February, the way I had intended. And when I picked it up, it had six Japanese black pine grafts. Those are the ones that you see underneath that tape. That tape will remain there until November. Next June, if I have half those or better, or one or two of those, whatever, if I have some of those take enough to start the tree with, I am to start removing the ponderosa foliage by half. That's like this time next year, I would go through and remove the ponderosa foliage by half if some of those grafts up there that are Japanese black pines have taken. Also, if any of those Japanese black pine grafts have taken, I will no longer have to overwinter the tree in a colder climate to make sure that it stays in its hardy zone, right? That it stays in its sweet spot. So that is exciting, scary sighting. And yeah, it's probably the thing that's got my mind buzzing most on the balcony right now. It's almost distractingly fantastic what we're doing with this tree. In a lot of ways, I have been guilty of moving quickly and having it cost me before. This time, the styling I did, I would later find out, might actually have worked in our favor. There is a grower who specifically said that his luck at grafting ponderosas went from 50 to 80, 90% when he grafted trees that he had just recently, like the sooner to the styling that the grafting was, the more, the higher the ratio of successful grafts. It all had to do with when you're moving branches around, things that were low are now high, things that were high were now low, and the hormonal allocation goes whizzing by all of those branches and all those junctures. And when I say whizzing by, I mean comparatively speaking to the slow roll that everything is normally on. And all of that plays in to the hands of a new graft that needs stuff going by in front of it to be able to pull in resources to keep growing and to thrive and to heal and to take off. So if you just take and put a graft on the end of a branch, it only has what's going on at the tip of that branch to sustain it. And that new tip on its own will not pull in the resources to sustain. So farther back, where there are other things happening that have demands on the tree, so that all of those things go floating by, means that it is able to get the resources that it needs to do all the stuff that it has to do, like repair and set and heal and callus over where its cut was, and all of that good stuff. So, like I said, scary, exciting. I just put down more biogold. In the couple of years that I'm going to have the tree, if I were looking to do a needle reduction, I would have to transplant the tree out of this pot to do a ponderosa single flush pine needle reduction, because that also has to do with how much stored energy is in the roots. And with a big pot, big energy is stored down there in those roots. That would be big R energy is down there in the roots, and that's not conducive to making needle length shorter. Grafting it with Japanese black pine is, though. That's kind of like a shortcut. This thing starts taking over with Japanese black pine. One, we have another future styling that will be starting all over, and everything that you see that's green and lush, except for the tape, which is hiding the future of the tree, will come off at some point. When we finally do our final repot, that would be what I've been told by one grower, would be the time that you would then cut that final bit of lingering ponderosa pine, would be after the repot. So that's kind of how that works. We make those grafts that are underneath those pieces of tape. They're being protected from direct sunlight by that tape. We do things to them in November to proper facilitate them, make sure they don't get too dry or too wet, too hot, too cold, too whatever. And then we kick back again and further facilitate that in next June. And then after that, we just take what we got and make decisions. Either it goes back to Auburn for more grafts and overwintering, or we take off then with our new life as a ponderosa with Japanese black pine grafts on it. And we will grow the tree like a Japanese black pine, and it will be acclimated to this climate, and we will be acclimated to it. In the meantime, one thing I can do is feed. It's not going to hurt my grafts to have all that food going on, I don't think. And also, if it fattens up the tree, we could use some fat. That guy will just if I could get the kind of fat out of that I've gotten out of a few of my other oaks and pines, that's just going to play right in. That's just going to play right into our evil hand. Also, I see some future sharis on this tree that could be just beautiful. They lend themselves well to the that bark makes such a cool contrast to the deadwood features below, and yeah, I'm just totally looking forward to all the stages of this, and pretty excited, pretty scared about all the changes that it has to go through. But that's, we live and die for that stuff. So yeah, that's what's going on. That's what's going on there. I suspect in the end, I'm going to learn about gins, because all of that growth is stuff, a lot of that growth is stuff that I put spirals and bends and curls to, and they're accented in much the same way the trunk is. And rather than cut all that stuff back to nothing, if I could leave some of those curlicues as gins, I think that would be so cool. But I've got a lot to learn about gins. That they may not work that way. Backing up. Our Trident Maple, we did a huge air layer on this Trident Maple. It's doing well. It's taking up a ton of water. Its branches are all over and invading the whole balcony. It's a little pushy and full of itself, but we have a plan in mind to bring this thing back to a little bit more of a manageable state. Otherwise, all that stuff it's doing, yeah, no, that's good. You just keep on. Be as big as you want to. Be as big as you want to be. It's just totally fun. But getting back to the graph, a week or so ago, I had a little peek inside. Some of y'all were saying something about roots. I wasn't really concerned about roots. I'm not even looking for them. Actually, when I look for roots is when I come in here and I'll water. I'll stick my head underneath here and see if I see anything. And when I do see something sticking out there, out of the bottom, I'll know that it's already up in here where it came from. So until I see that, I don't get too excited. What I was worried about is every time I look down there, and it's too early to even see anything by my book. I'm not even looking up the road for it yet. But the only thing I would think of when I go, did we do everything right? Yeah, I think we did. Is that moss still wet? Oh, I don't know that. When this gets dry, I didn't know whether or not it was going to take the moisture out of that moss or not. So when we did the little top explore, I really wasn't looking for roots. In fact, I never did. I didn't even want to undress this down to there, and rather than stick my head totally up in there and mess with stuff, all I wanted to do was find out if it was wet or dry. And whether it was wet or dry, either one, I wasn't going to pass up an opportunity to add a little water to that just for cause. And if I add water to one spot, I'm not that concerned about it going back here to where it could be drier or over here where it could be drier. I assume that once I seal that back up, at some point it's going to kind of just turn into humidity in there and spread around. Also, the peat moss will spread that around. So we went in, we added water, we sealed it back up. Pretty happy with that. Even the leaf that I see that I've enshrined in there seems to be doing pretty well. Sorry, little leaf. That's what's going on there. Next to it is a wisteria. The wisteria gave us a bloom this year for the first time. It's pretty exciting. And then it starts flushing out all this stuff to where you can no longer see the tree. I'm not concerned about it. It's grabbing up all the light it can from these guys, which is what it does. And we'll let it go until winter when all the foliage falls off of it. In the meantime, some of the tendrils that grow too long, if you let those, I found that if I let those grow too long, then next year's part of the trees will end up being the buds that'll be on those. So I cut them off early so that whatever buds it wants to put on for blooms and whatever buds it wants to put on for leaves and stems and all that, it knows to put them on the parts that are existing, because I'm about to go through here and cut all that other stuff off. I learned to do that before it puts out those buds. That way, next year's blooms and next year's branches don't end up on the chopping floor. But also, I can't tell the difference between a bloom bud and a stem bud, but it puts them both out about the same time the year before. So, what I know about wisterias. Also, these things, I always say this, you could put a wisteria in a pan of water and blow town for a couple of weeks. I'm not saying you can submerge it, but if you had it in water down there or something, that would, and it's not like the roots can survive that just fine. It's what some people I've heard call auto prune. It's like the roots, the new roots can regrow in that mat of old roots like it was some sort of peat moss on its own. So auto prune is something these guys can do. It'll kill back the 2 days. That little layer of roots will disappear, but the water level will make sure that the rest of the tree can get all the water it needs. And then what it will do is start new roots that will go and just try to refill that mat like it was some other type of substrate. And that's something wisteria people have known to do for a long time. They say that it increases their chances of blooming. I don't know if it increases your chances of blooming. I know too much nitrogen, I think, may affect your odds. I go with BioGold, which none of its ingredients are over a single digit. It is 555. So, yeah, that, not cutting my blooms off at the end of the summer, but cutting my tendrils off earlier before they get too long, keeps the tree short and keeps it from making buds and blooms that end up getting discarded. That and that little dish of water. And this Chinese sinensis, this Chinese wisteria is super, super, super easy to grow, as is its cousin, the Japanese wisteria. This guy bloomed, the Japanese wisteria blooms white. The Chinese wisteria gave us a kind of a purplish blue. It was absolutely beautiful. Okay, that's got us there. Now, in the weed tree zone, I've got okay news, mediocre news, and not so good news. A lot of our trees are looking pretty good. This guy got a little repot. We're not doing the candles on it this year, but it seems to be pretty happy. We'll do some sort of prune back a little later in the year, but it's still getting fed. This little peanut here got its candles cut and is already, looks like it's about to start pushing out. Yeah, I can already see the beginning of buds coming out around those sites. This has been a great little tree so far. I've really enjoyed my little wabi-sabi pot with a Japanese black pine seedling in it. It seems to be doing well. One of my favorites, we decandled this guy. And as you can see, it's in one of Elizabeth Crutenden's pots. It's a really good match for that pot. And that trunk is doing all of that. Look at all that stuff it's doing. It's looking like that because I left the wire on it. If I tried to remove that wire, it would not only not look as good, but it would make the tree very, very frail, if would not break it. So we're just going to consider that like a fishing line that broke. It's gone. But it's going to continue to be a part of that tree. Come on, focus, will you? It's going to continue to be a part of that tree, and is part of why it's got that really gorgeous look. I had to rethink. I once saw somebody talk about leaving wire on their Japanese black pines, and my instincts were, I would never do that. And then once I removed the wire from one of my trees, I had okay luck, and it came out the way I thought it would, but I've also had bad luck doing that. I've had trees that came out very, very frail after I removed the wire from them, and they continued on that frail for a while. This guy's doing good. It's putting out new growth. We did the candles on it. It hasn't been in that pot too long, but it's looking good, and I'm pretty happy all the way around with it. What I'm not happy with is the Cascade. I put this in one of my favorite little pots. Elizabeth Crutenden sent us this pot, and this tree was already starting to look a slightly bit yellow. And I thought to myself, one thing we could do to improve it would be to get it out of its underpotted state. It was already looking a little yellow, and I was kind of hoping in the back of my mind that this might work in our favor. Instead, it worked against us, and we hurried it along to the River of Styx. It's gone. Live and learn. What probably happened here was our 90-degree days is what it looked like to me. It stopped looking good after that. And I looked at that pot size and thought, yeah, its ability to survive in the tiny pot that I had it in was probably diminished, but it seems to be pushing on. And then about the time that I noticed it and the one that I call Buck 50, both looked about this yellow. Buck 50 is soldiering along, and I'm getting it to green up more every week. However, the bud there on the end, that's dead. Should probably cut it. I'm not going to. I'm not going to do anything. It's got new growth on it, and it's pushing out new green, but it also doesn't look the best. I think its ability to survive 90-degree days was also in question. Brought this tree in, but I couldn't take it out of the heat. I could take it out of the direct light and the sun, but I couldn't take it out of the direct heat. So we won't be doing a candle cutting on that guy. Those two exceptions, the rest of our little Japanese black pines here, our little mames, are doing really well. This was our, get a better hold of that guy. These two little guys have been huddled together against whatever life throws at it from day one. They accidentally got dropped in the same seed cup, and we put them in there a couple of months ago. So let's see. Anybody? Anybody out? Did we catch anybody out? No, I think that's got everybody. That's a look. Let's look at our balcony. Let's look at our trees. You don't have to have a big backyard to have 80, 90, 100 bonsai trees. I don't know how many bonsai trees. I've counted 96, and I've gotten more and lost some since then. So more or less 100 trees here. You don't have to have any yard. You don't have to have any land. This could be a window box. And no, it wouldn't have a 100 trees if it were a window box. But it might have my best 3. And I would get so much bonsai joy for those. It's easier to grow 100 bonsai trees than it is 3. That thing when I was talking about the black pines and the one that got less attention was actually looking better, that's what tends to happen if you only have one bonsai tree. I think a bonsai master with only one bonsai tree would probably still find it difficult. I could be wrong, but just an opinion I have. One tree is hard. A lot of trees, a lot easier. Just a little bit of attention to a lot of trees. You're spread, maybe you're not spread too thin, but you think you are. That keeps you from doing too much to any one of them. And as a whole, you can look over the tops of everything and see that it's going well. You don't focus too much on things that aren't really there. And, just all of that stuff, that psychological game we do when we care about something seems to settle itself or iron itself out a little bit when we have more trees to take care of. Like and subscribe if you guys have not already. Our next show will be tonight, this very night, when we do Saturday Night Live Bonsai. I usually bring in something, and we try to do something. We try to make it interesting and do a live show. To me, it's more about being more up close and personal with anybody who might be up at that hour. Here in California, I try to wait till it's dark So that's started getting almost closer to 9 o'clock. But by 8:30, I like to be rolling, and those you can pick up those shows Sunday morning if you didn't catch it the first time around. We've done some serious stuff, and we've just kind of fooled around and pulled weeds before. You never know what you're going to get on Saturday Night Live Bonsai, but tonight we'll be doing Saturday Night Live Bonsai. I appreciate you. Frida appreciates you. I hope that you appreciate this beautiful day wherever you are. And thank you so much for watching.